Hello, welcome to Gus McDowell Strategy and Tactics, and thank you to our subscribers. In this series, we play through each of the battles in the American Grand Campaign in Close Combat 4, the Battle of the Bulge. We use historical World War II US Army doctrine to plan and conduct each battle. This is the strategic map. It is 1600 hours on December 17, 1944, and the weather is foggy. US forces have no air support, no artillery, and no supply drops. In the last episode, the after-action review for Turn 3, American forces withdrew from the roadblocks and prepared for encounter battles along the line of contact in front of the combat outposts, blocking at the north and south, and withdrawing under pressure in the centre. The next battle is at Baugnez, between the US 14th Cavalry Group and the German Kampfgruppe Peiper from 1st Panzer Division. Commander, you must hold this supply depot, hold the high ground near the centre of the town, and occupy the tallest building for the best lines of fire. On the US side is an American cavalry battle group from the 14th Cavalry Group under command of Colonel Devane. It moves very fast and reserves are full. The reconnaissance company consists of 3 platoons. First platoon is mostly armoured cavalry, M8 Greyhounds and M20s. Second platoon is mostly recon scouts. And third platoon includes 2 anti-tank guns and 2 light tanks. The original squads from the first battle retain their names and statistics. Let's rename the new squads off camera for ease of reference. Now, let's review each of the squads. 1-1 is 1st Platoon Headquarters Command Half-Track. 2-1 is 2nd Platoon Headquarters. 3-1 is 3rd Platoon Headquarters. 2-2 is a Recon Squad. 2-5 is a Recon Squad. 2-4 is a Recon Squad. 3-4 is a Stuart light tank with a 37mm gun. 3-5 is also a Stuart light tank with a 37mm gun. 1-2 is an M8 Greyhound 37mm. 1-3 is also an M8 Greyhound 37mm. 1-5 is an M20 with a heavy machine gun. 1-4 is also an M20 with a heavy machine gun. 3-3 is a 57mm anti-tank gun. 3-2 is also a 57mm anti-tank gun. And 2-3 is an M9 bazooka team. Next, let's look at the map and conduct a commander's estimate of the situation. Our mission is to delay the hostile column from Kampfgruppe Peiper in order to secure the critical routes through Baugnez. Baugnez is a tiny village consisting of a handful of buildings at a 5-ways crossroads. Roads lead east to Simmerath, southeast to Udenbrecht, south to Monschau, southwest to Sandvit, and west to Stavelot. The village is surrounded by open fields enclosed with wooden fences, with small woods and copses dotted around. There is high ground to the east, northeast, northwest, and southwest. In each case, a bare low hill. Observation and fields of fire are largely unobstructed across the open fields, with long sight lines down the roads. There is only very limited cover for defenders, mostly the village buildings. The southern slope of the high ground to the east provides some terrain shielding. The small copses offer some concealment, but little cover. The area is open with no significant obstacles to movement. The high ground to the east and northwest is key terrain, as it would offer an attacker a marked advantage in being able to dominate the area by fire. For the defender, the village buildings are key terrain, as they offer cover and concealment. An attacker from the east has 2 avenues of approach, directly to the southwest and indirectly to the northwest. 14th Cavalry Group has previously fought and defeated the German Kampfgruppe Peiper from 1st Panzer Division. We can expect them to have Panther and Panzer IV tanks, half-tracks, and Panzer Grenadier. The Panzers are their critical capability. The crossroads are the obvious objective. The Germans are coming from Simerath, so their likely axis of attack is from the east. They are hemmed in and channeled by the high ground. As such, it is likely the Panzers will look to fire across open fields to exploit their range. The half-tracks will use the main road. Infantry will move between the areas of vegetation, and the Germans may have fire support behind the large copse of trees. The area between the village and the Y-junction is the optimal killing zone. Alternatively, the Germans could set up a Panzer support by fire position on the high ground to the northeast. From there, they could use fire to clear the high ground to the east and northwest, and suppress defenders in the village. Meanwhile, infantry supported by half-tracks could make a long right hook around to the northwest, using the high ground and vegetation for cover and concealment in the approach. They could move into a forming up point on the reverse slope of the high ground to the northwest. They could then attack the village from the northwest, taking the defenders in the flank and nullifying any cover provided by the village buildings. The key risk with this approach is the two-storey building to the west, which looks into the likely forming up point. The forming up point and reverse slope would be the optimal killing zone. The first option is for the Americans to occupy a defensive position in the woods to the northwest, 2nd Platoon to the north, and 1st Platoon's vehicles to the south. Both platoons would have mutually supporting fires against any advance from the east. This would form a hard shoulder, preventing German infantry from conducting a right hook attack. The German Panzers would then likely advance to occupy the village. The Panzers would be engaged by the US tanks and anti-tank guns, placed behind cover at the two-storey building to the west and to the south-southwest at Mathenet's farm. Once the Panzers were dealt with, 1st and 2nd platoons would then form up and counterattack from the northwest, catching the Germans in the flank. The tanks of 3rd Platoon would be the reserve. However, the anti-tank guns would be firing into the front of the Panzers. This is where their armour is thickest, and the 57mm anti-tank shells could just bounce off. Plus, infantry in the village would benefit from the cover provided by the buildings. More importantly, the mission is to delay the hostile column, in order to secure the critical routes through Baugnez. This plan relies on a counterattack to recapture Baugnez. If this counterattack fails, the mission cannot be accomplished. The second option is for the Americans to set up a defensive position in the village itself. 1st and 2nd platoons would occupy the same space, but with 1st Platoon vehicles behind the buildings and 2nd Platoon infantry inside them. 3rd Platoon would occupy positions off to the right and fire into the flank of any Germans advancing through the killing zone. The anti-tank guns would be hidden in the trees to the south, and the tanks masked by terrain on the south slope of the high ground to the east. 1st and 2nd Platoon in the village would be the anvil, and 3rd Platoon behind the hill the hammer. A single M20 and recon team would cover the possible German forming up point to the northwest. And another M20 and recon team would be the reserve. The strength of this plan is that it concentrates flanking anti-tank fire into the killing zone. The risk with this plan is that it puts all the eggs into the Baugnez basket. If Panzers overrun the village, there is not much the Americans can do to stop them moving onwards to the west. I have made my decision and have placed the platoons and squads in position. And so we begin. Both sides exchange anti-tank fire.
All of our tanks have been destroyed.
And lose 2 vehicles each. I'm not sure how the Stuart tanks were both shot through a solid hill. The Germans have lost a Panzer IV and a mortar half-track, with the flame half-track immobilised. German infantry enter the killing zone. The Germans are pushing straight on the village in a frontal attack. No finesse. So Kampfgruppe Peiper. The Panther is immobilised and then knocked out, as is the second Panzer IV. The Germans still have 2 tanks and a half-track. 3-2 is knocked out, one of the anti-tank guns.
Keep your heads down.
3-3 enters the fight, the other anti-tank gun.
I can't take anymore!
Conserving ammunition! Conserving ammunition!
We're under heavy fire!
Conserving ammunition!
German infantry have taken the outskirts of Baugnez.
Ah!
1-2, Hermann's Greyhound, fires through the ground floor of the 2-storey building.
We're doomed!
Ah!
3-3 is out of anti-tank ammunition. And the other anti-tank gun and both tanks have been destroyed. The anti-tank battle is not going in our favour. The Panzergrenadiers renew their frontal assault on Baugnez with a Sonderkraftfahrzeug in support.
Sergeant!
2-3, McQueen's bazooka team knocks out the Kommandowagen Sonderkraftfahrzeug.
Move completed!
This is their platoon leader. Wells's Greyhound mounts a local counterattack. The Kommandowagen Sonderkraftfahrzeug
Team redeployed!
and the Panzer IV cook off. The Germans still have a Sturmgeschütz assault gun, as well as infantry and the immobilised Flammenwerfer half-track, and a Panzer IV medium tank. Hit and destroyed. Underhill in Wells's vehicle targets the flame half-track. The Kampfgruppe is down to 2 armoured vehicles. First platoon opens up on troops in the open.
Fliegendes Geschoss! Wir sind in der Klemme!
The Americans come under concentrated artillery fire. For the first time in the campaign. These might be heavy mortars.
Lieutenant!
The recon team displaces forward, and the Greyhound withdraws.
Sergeant!
Too late. 1-3 Wells's Greyhound takes a direct hit and is knocked out. Wells is killed by the blast.
We need to pull back!
1-2 Herman's Greyhound moves cautiously forward.
In position. Area secured.
We're doomed!
McQueen on the bazooka hits the Panzer IV. Immobilized, but not knocked out. A second hit. The Panzer IV knocks out 3-3, the remaining anti-tank gun. All German armour is now immobilized or destroyed.
No clear path.
German infantry are pushing on the left flank of the village. 2-1, 2nd Platoon headquarters opens up on Germans in the open.
Keep your heads down.
Peiper, in the 1st Platoon headquarters half-track, moves to counter the German push. Total American victory. The battle ended because the Germans' force morale got too low and they were forced to retreat off the map. The Americans gained control of the map and the German battle group was forced to disband. The Americans won the battle because they control a greater number of crucial victory locations than the Germans. The Americans took 6 killed, 10 wounded, 2 tanks destroyed, 1 Greyhound destroyed, and 2 anti-tank guns destroyed. The Germans took 23 killed, 20 wounded, 3 tanks destroyed and 2 captured, and 3 half-tracks destroyed. Let's examine the American squads. Herman and Yoder both receive the Combat Infantryman's badge. Wells receives a hasty burial. Gould and Underhill are evacuated rearward. Norman, in 2nd Platoon, receives the Combat Infantryman's badge. Perales is buried alongside Wells. Roy is evacuated. Goodley knocked out 2 tanks and is awarded the Bronze Star. Butler and Garibaldi are evacuated. Evans and Davis remain forever in Baugnez. Egan joins them. The remainder of the crew, less Armstrong, are evacuated. Also evacuated, Becker in the 1st Stuart, and Dortmund in the 2nd Stuart. Maddox is buried. Odom receives the Combat Infantryman's Badge. So far, the campaign remains a major American victory. The Grand Campaign has 15 days remaining. Your defence of the Ardennes is progressing better than your historical counterparts. Over the campaign, cumulative American losses are 123 killed in action, 120 wounded in action, 5 tanks, 1 vehicle, and 10 guns. Cumulative German losses are 249 killed, 196 wounded, 27 tanks, and 15 armoured vehicles. So, what did we learn? The American Cavalry Battle Group, with its M8 Greyhounds and M20 armoured cars, and dismounted scouts, is a reconnaissance company. Although normally employed on reconnaissance missions, the reconnaissance company may be used to harass or delay a hostile column, or to secure critical routes or areas pending the arrival of other forces. When engaged in reconnaissance missions, the reconnaissance company may be required to engage in combat in order to carry out its mission. In this case, the company had a lot of anti-tank capability to accomplish its mission of delaying the hostile column in order to secure the critical routes through Baugnez. The two 57mm anti-tank guns, 2 Stuarts, the guns on the M8 Greyhounds, and the bazookas. But these are all light caliber weapons, and they were up against medium and heavy tanks such as Panzer IVs and Panthers. So it was especially important to get flanking shots against the enemy armour, to hit them where they are weakest. I had assumed that the high ground to the east would provide terrain shielding to the Stuart tanks. In other words, that the Stuarts could hide behind the hill and pop out to engage enemy armour from a flank. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and both Stuarts were knocked out early on by direct fire while still behind the hill, in return for only 1 enemy tank destroyed. A poor exchange rate. The anti-tank guns were also both knocked out, but in exchange for 3 tanks and 3 armoured vehicles, a much better exchange rate. If I had known the high ground would provide no cover to the tanks, I would not have put them there. Instead, I may have used them as a counterattack force to swing in from the north when the enemy tanks had been defeated. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe and donate, and stay tuned for the next episode.